Thank you for listening to Curious Cat, where we examine the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. During a recent car ride with a loved one, we had a great conversation that led them to making some really fun suggestions for a few, quote, light episodes for the run up to the holidays. Well, I considered those. Both of them were fresh and sweet, and then consideration turned into clarification. This podcast, it's a place where everyone is welcome. It's a place of imperfections, of experimentation, of authenticity and vulnerability, all in the vibration of love. That's my hope, at least. In short, I won't pollute this podcast with content that wasn't generated by my soul or higher self. And if you've noticed, that means that there's some gaps in between weeks where I'm putting out content because I'm being super picky about my voice, what I'm saying, and who else is going to share the microphone with me. So the second aha moment that came on the heels of the first one, what I need right now is a guide that helps me get through the holidays while grieving. I'm not sure if you need this conversation or maybe someone dear to you does, but I'm offering it in love. The logical order of this episode is to out myself for the strategies I've used or neglected to use to cope with grief, not only during the holidays, but on every day ending with a Y. My first bad strategy, well, I think I expressed it best in an article I wrote for Substack titled Crab and Sourdough Bread. Here it goes. And it begins. I'm just going to quote the whole thing. How are you, dear readers? Survived the holidays? I'm glad. Taken down the tree yet? Me either. I'm in no hurry. The glow of lights on these short days of winter warm my insides like a shot of whiskey. Hopefully I've caught you before you've gilded your New Year's resolutions in gold leaf, snagged you at the drafting stage. I have insights that might clarify the fuzzy parts. Here's the gist if you don't have time for a longer read. 2022 resolution, so let's go ahead and substitute 2024. Do whatever the F you want. That's it. The subtext is, of course, do no harm to others. Consult your soul and act accordingly. If you can look a decision square in the eyes and know it comes from a place of love, then I repeat, do whatever the F you want. This advice is the direct result of my Christmas epiphany. Our Christmas Eve dinner of crab and sourdough bread was served with a bowl of metaphorical sweet and sour sauce. Put simply, my emotions were all over the place. I felt moments of peace, joy, happiness, gratitude, missing my dad, tears, and regret. It's the regret I need to lay bare here so that you avoid my missteps. Regret causes sour effervescence in the pit of the belly that, if left untreated, wears a hole through my stomach lining. I don't want you to suffer that fate. Why? A little over a year ago, via our morning and evening texts, I planned a trip south to see my father and mother. It's how I wanted to celebrate my birthday. It's the only gift I wanted. Dad and I planned the weekend, the meals we'd cook, the food we'd order in, the movies we'd watch, and then, as I readied to purchase my plane ticket and rental car, Dad texted that because of COVID, I couldn't come. It was too risky. I told him, I more begged him, I wouldn't even have to come inside the house. I could visit them from the porch. I could sleep in my rental car. I could make this work if he'd let me. I had been in a bubble for months, only left it once in order to move my college grad out of Irvine the past July. I was smart. I was conscientious. I took vitamins, abided by all the latest health guidance. I offered to quarantine for a week once I was in town. He said, as much as it hurt to tell me, I might bring disease to their small town. I didn't want to be Typhoid Mary. I love Fort Bragg. I backed out of the Alaska Airlines website and sobbed. A little over 3 months later, my father was dead. I'd had the honor of being there as he passed away, yes, and I am so grateful we got him back home from the hospital to die exactly as he wanted. But goddamn. Back to the present, Christmas Eve 2021. I wore Dad's ugly Christmas sweater and went with my family to see Spider-Man: No Way Home. I ate half a tub of popcorn that I enjoyed for both of us, me and Dad. He knew we were headed to the movies. You see, while the rest of the house slept in that morning, I told Dad our plans. I glanced at the flock tree and the uppermost ornament spun around and around. It was Dad responding. No other ornaments, branches, or lights budged. I smiled, savoring this secret moment between us. His wink from the beyond fortified me. The movie was terrific. The company, my youngest kid and husband, was perfect. Then, once home, we prepped the crab, made salad, warmed the sourdough bread, and the text from my family to the south pinged my phone. A ball of something hot and uncomfortable formed in my chest. Was I having a heart attack? I thumbed through sweet images of my niece and nephew playing, the voices of my loving, wonderful family in the background. My cheeks flushed with love for them, but my chest continued to burn. And then it dawned on me. This wasn't a heart attack. This was rage. Rage? Where was this rage coming from? I tamped it down like a cigarette butt on asphalt. Asphalt. I'm an ass. It's no one's fault. And I continued with dinner. We ate. I channeled my anger into scrubbing pots and pans clean. I thought I'd off-gas some of my angst, but as my spouse played tug with our dog Cooper, he slipped and the lab's fragile hips splayed and I barked, "Don't play rough with Cooper. I can't deal with a hurt dog." The room cleared. I retreated upstairs and did what I'd wanted to do since the rage took hold of my cells. I changed into pajamas and pressed play on The Ref, my father's favorite Christmas movie. I nested, comforter pulled up to my eyes, and watched, wishing Gary Riley was in the room to make his funny side comments. As the credits rolled, I turned on A Christmas Carol. It was that BBC version they play on FX, which is absolutely incredible if you haven't seen it yet. You can find it on Hulu. But anyhow, at the Ghost of Christmas Past part, my heart thawed. I apologized to my husband, texted an apology to my kid. I went back into my cocoon and watched more of the movie, then fell asleep. It wasn't until Christmas Day was half over that I unearthed the source of my rage. Texts from family. They'd been allowed to travel to Dad and Mom's place to celebrate only 3 weeks after my ill-fated birthday trip. I'd been so incredibly angry and hurt, and at the center of the sore spot, I was pissed at myself for not doing what I'd wanted and what I'd needed, and I knew I could do responsibly. There are 2 times in my life I should not have asked permission to do what I knew I needed to be done. The first was when I wanted to change my degree from communications to fine arts in college. The second was when I wanted to spend my birthday with Dad. I've come to terms with both now. I am responsible for my decisions and my residual anger and bitterness. It has absolutely nothing to do with dad or mom or siblings or neighbors. It's my scar to wear in perpetuity. After texting with Dad, I considered flying to Santa Rosa, driving to Fort Bragg, knocking on the front door, saying hello and visiting from the back porch. I'd return to Seattle content. I could have done that. I should have. COVID. Effing COVID. It put many of us in a perpetual cycle of fear. It's time to stop the merry-go-round. When it emerged, we didn't know much, and because of that, we were terrified. We did the best we could at the time. We still are, but we're learning how inept the people in charge have been. In fact, most glaringly, they've been living their lives while we dutifully paused. If that isn't motivation enough to break the cycle of fear, then think of me and my non-choice choice, the one that meant no birthday with Dad, instead seeing him one last time on his deathbed. My advice, do not wait to make plans. See people, hug them, shake their hand, lift your mask, smile at the baby across the street. We've sacrificed enough. Never going to have the chance to do's. Let's agree to stop. Stop asking permission from an expert, a doctor, a politician, a relative, a friend, an anonymous stranger to do anything you want. Just stop. Be kind, be safe, be courteous, and for God's sakes, be bold. It will feel like too much at first if you have residual anger from your non-choice choices over the last 2 years. Channel that emotion into action. Let anger be your mighty shield. Step into the moment and look down to find you are okay. Actually, you're better than okay. You'll see that your fear is a shrunken thing in the corner of your psyche. Go ahead and hide it behind a potted fern if you like, but move on, live life. It's the best course of action for 2022. Do whatever the F you want. As always, sending you and yours love and the hope for peace on earth in the coming year. Jennifer. Okay, so the COVID stuff feels like a lifetime ago. I almost scratched that part, but then again, I needed to remind myself not to operate from a place of fear, which I did back then. I'd been afraid to piss off my family by ignoring their wish and showing up in Fort Bragg. It is a lesson that I paid for in blood, and I need to touch the scar every now and then so I do what I feel is the right thing forevermore. The big takeaway for today's conversation is that faking my way through grief, it doesn't work. It just ends up blowing up in my face and hurting people I love. I'm learning to tap into what I need, then verbalizing that. My family would have understood completely if I'd asked to postpone dinner or at least eat without me because I needed time to be in bed watching my dad's favorite movie. I'm certain they would have understood. But instead, I barked at them, I confused them, and I ruined the evening. But worse than that is I'd ignored one of the key symptoms of grief, anger and rage. And then, of course, it all blew up all over all of us. I wanted to also add an update. If I'd recorded this yesterday like I had planned, then the episode would have been incomplete. I had a dream. You see, Saturday is my birthday. And in the dream, my dad and I talked on the phone for what felt like hours. It was a birthday call. We caught each other up on our lives. We laughed and exchanged I love yous. And then the tenor turned sad. My father expressed his deep-seated regret that he didn't allow me to come that year for my birthday. I spoke what I felt even now that I'm at peace, that how it's all played out, I'm absolutely okay with. I am no longer holding on to anger or resentment. I'm good, Dad, I promise. But then he shared that his regret included not allowing my big brother and his partner to come visit. I told him, if you aren't at peace about that, you'll have to find ways to reach him and express your regret and apologize. That's on you. Still somber, we ended the call with more I love yous, and I reminded him that I am glad I'm his daughter. Regret is a smothering roommate. It sucks the oxygen out of your chest and pervades the mind. It's a crap thing to live with. It's even worse to die with, apparently. We do the best we can at the time with what we know and feel. I share the remainder of my missteps, which are huge, in the spirit of creating a smaller heap of regrets. So bad strategy number 2, fake happy. It is awful when I catch myself acting like I'm happy and fine, when in truth, I'm a wreck. It's a lose-lose for every single person I encounter too. For if they fall for the act, then in the past, I've ended up feeling unseen, ignored, hurt even for the pain behind my smile. That they didn't notice because my act was so flawless. It's so hard to admit that. It's awful and ugly, and it's true. I'm doing this less and less now that I am making a full-time effort to gauge what my needs are and finding ways to express those. But we're not here for that. I'm outing my old, crappy, codependent ways. Oh, and the second way the acting fine is a lose-lose. If they see through the fakery, if that's even a word, and they ask how I'm doing, I just crumble. I fall apart. I'm blathering, red-cheeked, sweaty, sobbing. I crumble. Don't get me wrong. That expression of emotion is good, really good. But when I've dammed it all up and it comes vomiting out all over the first person to notice, well, that's not healthy. It's not positive, and it isn't fair for the person on the other end. The opposite of fake happy is genuine living. That doesn't mean I should say every thought that flits through my head, but I'll keep attempting to be the most real that I can. Here's a thought you can take or leave, but if you are, you're having a day where you're just keenly missing someone, how about saying it out loud? How about mentioning it? Don't spend energy faking something else or stuffing down the truth. The payoff might cast ripples larger than yourself, and maybe that's the thing that'll help you have courage. What if every single person that bears witness to your way of being sees a countercultural way of living, and they choose to do the same? This goes for your children and your grandchildren as well. The death of a loved one hurts. It hurts in the short term. It hurts in the long term. It's not a 24-hour news cycle kind of pain. This hurts forever. The hurt looks and feels different as we go along, but it is always with us like a phantom limb. I'm not saying it's your job or mine to teach others a different way to coexist with grief, but it does feel healthier to express our emotions out loud if it does no harm to others. Just a thought. Oh, on another note about the fake happy, if I bottle up my grief or ignore it at the bellyache stage, it always builds to the point where I end up becoming an emotional Molotov cocktail. On the cellular level, it's an inflammation of my entire body, which seems toxic and pretty awful. Bad strategy number 3, trying to outfox grief. I was trying to stifle the laugh because I really don't want to edit it out. Grief is a coy, sneaky shapeshifter. It reminds me of when my children were babies. Just when I found a rhythm to their eating, their playing, their sleeping, there'd come some new variable that would blow up all of the old routines. Grief's like that for me. My rational brain will say, oh, this song always makes me cry, or that holiday will hurt forever, or I'm impatient, I'm controlling and pushy and anxious. I must be having a missing Mike day. And then when I choose to pay attention, be present, and marinate in the loss for a bit, it goes away. Grief laughs at my little observations, my pencil markings on the calendar that remind me to make time for grief on a birthday or whatever. Grief is Mr. Potato Head. Shake all the parts and pieces out of his plastic butt compartment, stick them in the holes at random, and what do you have? Grief. Now, pull them out and stick them in different holes. That's grief too. Ultimately, when I try to outfox grief, I end up with those red plastic lips stuck to the top of my head, a complete fool. I can recognize patterns, sure, but predicting future grief or even pre-grieving, that isn't a thing. It's wasted energy. Bad strategy number 4, stuffing down grief, then blowing up at a stranger. I told you this episode is all about airing my uglies in love so that you might avoid my mistakes. Or don't. Truly, it's your journey. So, this one's hard to admit. A month ago, I took my cat, who is epileptic, to his annual checkup. Opal had been fast asleep on the big bed, peaceful until I grabbed him up, stuffed him into his carrier, and drove to the vet. Our appointment was near the end of the day, all that so they could draw his blood to confirm that his phenobarbital levels were safe. That's the whole point of his annual checkup, so that they can feel safe writing the next year's worth of prescriptions. The actual exam went smoothly. Opal was a great little Buddha, but then the tech took him to the back room for the big blood draw. I asked if I should wait in the exam room or out front, and she said stay in the room. 15 minutes elapsed, then 30, then 45. Finally, the tech returned with Opal in his carrier. She slumped over and groaned. He's going to be very sore. I'm so sorry. His jugular will be deeply bruised for a while. I didn't understand. I had already paid and wanted to get Opal home. I remember having the presence of mind to ask why he'd be sore, and she said because they had difficulty finding a vein. Once home, Opal did what I have not seen him do ever. He hid under a bed for 2 hours. Sometime around supper, Opal came out and my cell phone rang. The number on the screen was for the vet. I answered and the text said, I need your credit card number. I forgot to charge you for the blood work. Well, I had paid $450 at the clinic, and the charges included his checkup and a vast blood screening. Confused, I reminded her of this. She responded, oh, that didn't include the pheno levels. That lab work is another $270. Why did I pay for a general screening then? The only reason I come in each year is to have the pheno screening. Well, I saw you did both last year, so I just assumed. I questioned, so I paid for both last year, and when I only needed one, you chose to do it again? I'd like you to take the money I already paid today and apply it just to the pheno level lab work and not to the other blood screening. You have plenty of blood for that. And she said, well, I'll have to check with my boss. I said, do whatever you need to do. My voice was strained with growing anger. Opal looked up at me and I saw his throat was a little bloody where they had tried to wash it off. And I said, what did you do to my cat? He's been hiding since we got home. Why is his throat bloody? Oh, we had to draw the blood from his jugular. His jugular? In my entire life of owning pets, I've never once heard of a blood draw from a jugular. She said, it's completely normal. It happens all the time. Yes, she doubled down. There are a multitude of places you can draw a cat's blood, she informed me. Well, yes, I'm sure. I reminded her that Opal had just had his late summer haircut, so he'd been short shaven all over his body. They could have drawn blood from lots of accessible places. Well, yes, but he's a fat cat, she said. It wasn't easy in those places. Something broke in me, and I responded. I caught myself yelling. My dog, Cooper, ran and hid in his bomb shelter, which is the mudroom, and I let her know that this was not okay. Opal had had a jaw injury during a grand mal seizure just a month ago, and that he'd only just healed up on top of that. I have to access his throat and his jaw twice a day to dose him with Beano to control his epilepsy. I was shaking with rage. She continued to justify. It was completely normal that they drew blood from there, and then I reminded her that she brought Opal back to me and she said he'd be deeply bruised. It was at that point I realized I needed to not be on the phone with her anymore. I told her I was hanging up, and I did so. I was a jerk. It doesn't matter about who was right or wrong. I treated her like crap. And it wasn't until I mapped out this episode that I realized that rage I'd felt, it was grief. This clinic had texted and messaged me to make an appointment for Romeo because he was overdue for his shots. My Romeo that died over a year ago. I had called them the first week after his death and asked them to please remove him from their records because he'd passed and they hadn't gotten rid of his records everywhere, apparently. Then, being back in that clinic with Opal, I must have felt on the cellular level, I'm just guessing, that I didn't do enough to advocate for Romeo's life, and I was sitting by passively as they poked my other cat in his throat for blood for 45 minutes. I was angry, but it was with myself. I was full of grief for my Romeo, and I blew up. It's inexcusable. It's crappy. It's awful. So yeah, don't bottle up or ignore your grief and blow up at a stranger. Please, please, please. It just doubles your pain and guilt. In a conversation with a family member last week, we got to talking about why grief shows up as anger sometimes. The Mr. Potato Head with the frown and the laser eyes. Anger is a way of feigning strength and don't mess with meanness. Anger is us saying, no, we are not vulnerable and weak and potential victims. We are strong and we could knock you down. Yeah, on a Darwinian level, sadness says, I'm vulnerable, which some might see as weak. Well, anger, I will never see you as bigger or better. You are a presentation of grief. I'm getting better at spotting you. Repetition over 3 years helps, but clearly from my recent vet visit, I am still a work in progress. And that takes us to bad strategy number 5, avoiding talking about the lost loved one. Avoidance, avoid dance. I've spent a whole bunch of energy dancing away from the void where the sore parts live. Wasted energy. It manifests in my body first as a bubbly stomach, then nausea, then knotted guts, and finally an ulcer. You have to feel it to heal it. As we dive into the holidays, find ways to make your loved ones a part of your gatherings. I laid out a bunch of ways to do so in a prior episode, and I put the link to it in the show notes. But just simply having a notebook with a pen on the kitchen counter where people can write a note or a memory or something about that person, it's an invitation to coexist with grief, or at least make room for grief at the table and hopefully in the post-turkey conversations. At Thanksgiving, We set the table using some of my mother-in-law's china. In this way, Betty was a part of our meal, and we were able to bring up our memories in a natural way. It felt fantastic. I wore Mike's atomic hat as we ran errands yesterday because I was missing him. That was a way I kept him close when my heart needed a dad hug. I think we're living at a time when it's trendy to revisit traditions. I hope hiding grief and avoiding talking of lost loved ones goes by the wayside once and for all. And in love, I hope my uglies help you, at the very least, to know we are all messy, beautiful, flawed, and spectacular humans. Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.